Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, good morning. How are you? I hope you are good enough. In here, I'm from group 5. Will explain you about labor budget. So before I explain about labor budget with my friend, I will introduce myself and my group member. So my name is Aisyah Cahyani, and I will become the first presenter, and the second is Ivantina Nurlita will be the second presenter, and the last is Reka Windaryani will be the third presenter or the last presenter. Okay, we will start from now. Yeah. Okay, for the first is I will explain about scope of the labor. Budget is a process of making a work plan within 1 year, which is expressed in monetary unit and other people quantitative units. Budgeting is often referred to as planning. So it can be called planning. According to human resource management, workers or employees are company assets that must be protected and made for the wealth of their life because they have devoted themselves to the company. Laborers who works in factory are grouped into two. So we have two types for the labor. The first is direct labor and the second is indirect labor. So the labor budget is a detailed planning of the number of hours of works, records, and the amount of labor costs, or we can call it wages. In this case, budget labor is labor that is directly involved in the production process, or in the other words is direct labor. Okay, you can see in this video right for the text if you want to understand more about what I say. And the next for the second is I will explain about steps in preparing a labor budget. We have 4 steps in here. You can see in this video the first step is about developing budget preparation guidelines, and the second is receive and analysis every budget submitted by each section or division, and the next is provide recommendation for improvement, and the last is approving the budget. We have something important. Maybe before preparing the labor budget, it is necessary to determine the main unit basis used to calculate it. A meaning table is a list of labor requirements that explain. The first is the type or qualification of labor required. The second is the number of each type, and the last is the parts that need it. Next is like what I say before, that we have 2 types of labor. The first is direct labor and the second is indirect labor. So for this first direct labor, I will explain it more detailed. First is direct labor is any type of work that is directly related to the production of goods or service. So for direct labor, it's related to production directly. Then usually in a factory manufacturing operation, each employee performs tasks that are associated with actually assembly or creation, and the costs are attributed to the cost of production or to the good production. And the next is about indirect labor. Indirect labor is also referred to as supporting labor because its contribution to the production process does not include actually producing product, and its costs are linked to factory overhead costs. So the difference is direct labor will related to producing directly, and indirect it's just supporting direct labor. And for the cost is Direct labor include in cost production, and indirect labor is include in factory overhead costs. Okay, and the next will explain by Ivantina and Reka. Times is yours. Thank you.
Okay, I will explain about characteristic of each type. Number one, direct labor. Number one, the cost for this type of labor is directly related to the level of production activity. Next, the costs incurred for this type of labor are variable costs. And the third, generally, it is said that this type of labor is labor whose activities can be directly linked to the final product, or especially in determining the cost of goods. And the second, indirect labor. For the first, the size of the cost for this type of labor is not directly to the level of production activity. For the second, costs incurred for this type of labor are costs semi-fixed or semi-variable. This means that costs experience change but are not proportional to change in the level of production activities. The workplace of this type of workforce does not always have to be inside the factory, but can be outside in the factory. Okay, next material is factor which influence. Direct labor have 4 points, and the first point is production plan, and the second, the part or department used to carry out the production process, and the third, standard product completion, time required to produce 1 unit of product, and the last, wage system used or according to time per hour, yield per unit, or with interval incentive. The next material is matters that need to be considered in workforce planning. Include, and the first, labor requirements, and the second, search or recruitment of workers, and the third is training for new workers, and the fourth, evaluation and job specification for workers, and the fifth, salaries and wages that must be received by workers' labor, and the last is supervision. Next material is calculation of labor standards. You can plan your daily lessons, make to structurally. The labor budget must be in accordance with the structure of the annual plan. Therefore, this budget must show cost and hour of direct work according to responsibility. By time and by product, daily direct work costs apart from direct supervision. Many companies develop realistic working standards for many of these activity reports are compared with actual results and reported on a daily basis. This report basically show, and the first, the actually worked, and the second, standard hours for actual production, and the third, difference of time. Calculation of standard direct work. Basically, the labor budget is closely related to the annual profit plan because it is the biggest cost when compared to other costs. The labor budget should be developed according to hours of work and direct costs and must also be developed according to the responsibilities and according to the intermediate periods. This is important for the estimation of the production cost of each product. Basic to calculate labor budget. For the first, direct labor hours, or DLH. DLH is time-based wage, namely the wage given to workers according to their working capacity. We can calculate total DLH, sum of production times direct labor hours. And the second, direct labor cost, or DLC. DLC is a number of wage or salaries given to employees where these employees are directly involved in the production process. We can calculate total DLC is total DLH times standard DLH per unit.
Okay everyone, in here I want to explain you how to calculate the direct labor budget. And for example, PT Graha Mustika produced the product A, and product A is produced by 3 parts, and the namely is part 1, part 2, and part 3. And then we can see there are 3 tables. Point A is the data of production, and point B is the plan of the direct labor hours per unit of goods in each part, and then point C is the data of plan the average wage rate in each part. From the following data, we request to make a direct labor budget, and I want to explain you how to calculate in bahasa. Oke, untuk penyelesaian kasus di atas, maka yang akan kita cari di sini adalah total DLH. Nah, total DLH ini nanti ada perbagian, kemudian dijumlah. Nah, jumlah itu merupakan anggaran jam tenaga kerja. Nah, di sini saya mengibaratkan menggunakan formulasi A sama dengan B kali C. Yang mana A adalah total dari DLH tersebut, kemudian B adalah dari data produksi yang kita ketahui di soal, dan C merupakan rencana jam kerja yang akan dihabiskan setiap per unit barang. Dan untuk C itu merupakan rencana jam kerja yang akan dihabiskan per unit barang. Kemudian menggunakan dasar DLC atau direct labor cost, maka kita akan mencari anggaran biaya tenaga kerja. Karena kita tadi sudah menghitung total DLH di anggaran jam tenaga kerja, maka di sini kita langsung saja mengalihkan dengan standar upah yang telah ditetapkan di soal. Maka dihasilkan jumlah dari masing-masing bagian per bulannya seperti ini. Kemudian jumlah yang telah dihasilkan kita total di bawah. Demikian cara untuk menghitung dari anggaran jam tenaga kerja dan anggaran biaya tenaga kerja. Okay, the next material is about the labor budget monitoring and planning function monitoring. Labor costs can be assisted by good approach to works, so they can work stably according to predetermined standard. A good preparation of the labor budget can bring several benefits for the company. Number 1, more efficient use of labor because of careful plan. And number 2, labor expense can be planned and managed more efficiently. And number 3, cost of goods can be calculated accurately. And number 4, use a means of controlling labor costs. And this is the other function of budget planning. Number 1, the result of the internal analysis of data companies can be used to make a work program in the future. And number 2, an external analysis also can be used to make a work program too in the future. Number 3, as a tool for working guidelines and controlling operational and financial activity. And number 4, as a means of coordination between section and division of company. Okay, the next material is about some disadvantages or weakness of budget planning. Number 1, prediction of future business activities are not necessarily accurate or are not necessarily close to reality. And number 2, the change in political, social, economic, and business conditions in the future are difficult to predict. So they are often not affordable in the mindset of budgeting. Number 3, there are often conflict of interest in budget preparation and implementation.